All right, we are starting today with lesson 22, finding the area of quadrilaterals. So let's start with the warm-up to ignite previous knowledge. We have vocabulary. A segment from a vertex that forms a right angle with the line that contains it. The base is called the blank of the triangle. So here, there is no picture, so it'd be a good idea to draw a picture. So we have a triangle and a segment from the vertex, so that is this right here, the part that's on top, that forms a right angle with the line that contains the base, going this. It has a right angle. It is called the base, height, or hypotenuse of the triangle. So if it's, here we have base, so it's probably not going to be base. Hypotenuse is specifically if we have a right triangle, then the hypotenuse is the longest side of that right triangle. So because this is talking about any triangle, we are not then talking about the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse would not be on, right next to a 90-degree angle anyways. So the answer is, of course, height. Number 2 asks us to identify each type of triangle. Because this triangle has a right angle, we know that this is a right triangle. B, we have all of the sides being the same. That's why they have those lines on there. So then we have an equilateral. And down here we have two sides that are the same. That means we have isosceles. Number 3 is asking us to identify each type of quadrilateral. Here we have two sides that are parallel. That gives us a trapezoid. B, we have two sets of parallel lines. That means we have a parallelogram. And the last one, we have four sides that are all the same. We aren't told anything about the angles. So that means we have a rhombus. And the last warm-up question says to evaluate the expression 2x squared plus 3xy minus y squared for x is equal to -2 and y is equal to 1. So here we're going to be using the substitution property. We leave the 2 there because it's just a number. We don't need anything. So now we have x is -2. Remember, whenever we substitute anything in, we substitute it in parentheses. So that's -2. Now x squared plus 3. The value for x is -2, so we plug that in parentheses, -2. Y, the value for y is 1 times 1. And then minus y, once again, is 1 squared. Now we follow through with the order of operations, starting with grouping symbols. None of the grouping symbols that we have matter. They're all just one number inside parentheses, so we don't have to worry about our groupings. But then we move on from grouping symbols to exponents, and right here we have an exponent, and right here we have an exponent. So we write down everything else that is not being used as an exponent. We have 2 times -2 squared. So this is the opposite of 2 times itself. So negative times a negative times a negative turns into a positive. So it's going to be a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. Now, in this middle term, we don't have any exponents, so we just leave it. Plus 3 times negative 2 times 1 minus, now I have 1 squared. Because the negative is outside of the parentheses, we do not square that negative. We have minus 1, because 1 times any number is itself. Now we did exponents, we move on, we did exponents roots, so now I move on to multiplication and division. So we have multiplication and division right here. 2 times 4 is 8, plus, here we have a positive, a negative, and a positive. So that means we can just rewrite this as a minus, because that's going to be what the sign's going to be. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 1, any number times 1 is itself. So that is 6. Now we have minus 1. So for the last step, we did multiplication and division. So now we need to do addition and subtraction. We have 8 minus 6 is negative, or is 2. Because 8, the positive 8 is bigger. 8 is bigger than the 6. So we take the positive and the 8. That is 8 minus 6 is 2. Then we have positive 2 minus 1. The signs are different. So we see subtract keeps sign the bigger number. The bigger number is the positive 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. All right, so the question that we are going to be answering with this part of this is find the area of each parallelogram. So this, we start off with a rectangle. So the rectangle is 14 yards by 8 yards. And then over here we have a parallelogram like this, where we have 16 feet and a height of 4 feet. We can actually probably solve A, because we know that the area of a rectangle is length times width. So we have area of rectangle is equal to length times width. So area is equal to 14 times 8. 4 times 8 is 32. Carry a 3. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3 more is 11. So the area of the first one, this is yards. Yards times yards is yards squared. Square yards. The area of that rectangle is 112 square yards. But over here, we don't know how to do parallelograms yet. So let's look at the next slide. We have, recall from lesson 13, the area of a triangle can be determined using its formula. A is equal to 1/2 base times height, where B represents the base and H represents the height. And A is in square units. Diagonal is drawn in a parallelogram. 2 identical triangles are formed. So here we have a diagonal. A diagonal is, of course, a line drawn from one vertex to another vertex, or another non-adjacent vertex. So here we draw across, and this triangle is the exact same as that triangle. We have side, side, side. The area of the parallelogram is twice the area of one of the triangles. So an expression to find the area of the parallelogram would be written as A is equal to 2 times 1/2 base times height. Simplifying this expression results in the formula below, which can be used to find the area of the parallelogram. So area of the parallelogram is equal to base times height. Because, like I said, we change into 2 triangles that are exactly the same. So then we take 1/2 times 2 is 1. So since rectangles, rhombuses, and squares are all types of parallelograms, the areas of the shapes can be found using this formula. So here it's asking to find the area of the parallelogram so if you look at this, its area is equal to BH. That's not any different than length times width. It's just because the height is the same as the width, and the base is the same as the length. It just ends up being the same formula. So we have base is 22, height is 12. So we have A equals 22 inches times 12 inches. So we have 264. And then inches times inches is inches squared. Over here we have a square that has 3 yards. That means the other side is 3 yards as well. So we have base times height, 3 yard times 3 yard. We have area is equal to 9 because 3 times 3 is 9. Yards times yards is yards squared. The last one, this is what a parallelogram typically looks like, because we would call this a rectangle, we'd call that one a square. So this one we have what a parallelogram would typically look like. So we have a height of 8 and a base of 15. So we have area is equal to base times height. So the base is 15 feet times 8. 15 times 8 is 120. Feet times feet is feet squared. So now going back to our questions from before, we already did A, so we don't need to worry about that one at this point. But B, we now know that the base is 16 and the height is 4. So on top of any papers you're going to be doing for this unit, and any time where it says 22 on the things, you can just write A equals BH. So now we have a base of 16, so we have area is equal to 16 feet. And we have that times 4. Area is equal to 16 times 4 is 16. 4 feet times feet is feet. So that is it for part 1, and I'll be doing part 2 very shortly.